Guruve Gaura Chandaya Dharikaya Tadali Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranam devotees, forgive my voice. I'm still recovering, actually, from being sick a little while ago. But bear with me. I'm just answering one question today. And giving some quotes from our Srila Prabhupada regarding this particular topic. And the question was whether or not we should read the books of the previous Acharyas. So the devotee who asked the question had apparently heard that it was not advisable to read the books of the previous Acharyas, that we would find everything in Srila Prabhupada's books. So the statement that everything is within Srila Prabhupada's books is an absolutely true statement. But inclusive of what's in Srila Prabhupada's books are directions to study the books of the previous Acharyas. So I will first go ahead and begin by giving the quotes from Srila Prabhupada in this regard so that there's no confusion that it's my personal opinion, but that it is directly coming from Srila Prabhupada. So let me see. I'll give the references to where you can find them as well. So I'm going to stick primarily, there are some that are morning walk conversations, and I'll try to maybe come back to those, but I'll try to deal with the actual ones that are present in the books first. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 2, 117, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions, Dandavat Sadhana Siddha Prabhu, Dandavat. False devotees think that studying the books of previous Acharyas is unadvisable, like studying dry empiric philosophies. But Jiva Goswami, following the previous Acharyas, has inculcated the conclusions of the scriptures in the 6 theses called Satsandarbhas. So false devotees who have very little knowledge of such conclusions fail to achieve pure devotion for want of zeal in accepting the favorable directions of devotional service given by self-realized devotees. So Srila Prabhupada spoke actually pretty heavily in this particular purport that the indication that we should not study the writings of the previous Acharyas is a false statement for one, but it also, he indicates, are coming from false devotees. So I think Srila Prabhupada was being very heavy in his language so that we would not become confused about the importance of the writings of the previous Acharyas. Srila Prabhupada has exclusively used the writings of the previous Acharyas, and he was very clear that he was presenting authentic writings of our Guru Varga back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that this was not an inventive philosophy or something that was spawned from his own ideas, but he actually directly was manifesting the genuine teachings coming in the line of Mahaprabhu. And Srila Prabhupada often gave very much importance to authenticity. He named his Bhagavad Gita as it is. And he relied on the prominency of the commentary of Srila Baladev Vijayabhushan Prabhu. So in all of Srila Prabhupada's writings, if anybody knows that when Srila Prabhupada would translate, he had a huge book which is called the Symphony of Commentaries. And there he would take the commentaries of all of our acharyas, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami Pad, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baladev Vijayabhushan, Adi Sridhar Swami, meaning Sridhar Swami is the original commentator on Bhagavatam, called Bhavarta Deepika. So Srila Prabhupada was very much insistent that we understand the writings of the previous acharyas and that we have a chance to read their writings. So in the purport of Adi Lila 2:118, one can know the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only by reaching in knowledge a conclusive decision about Sri Krishna, strengthened by bona fide study of the conclusions of the previous Acharyas. Then he says, Srila Sanatana Goswami Prabhu, this is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela 5203. Srila Sanatana Goswami Prabhu, teacher of the science of devotional service, wrote several books, of which the Brihad Bhagavatamrita is very famous. This was the first book of the Goswamis, by the way, was Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Anyone who wants to know about the subject matter of devotees, devotional service, and Krishna must read this book. Adi Leela, chapter 5, verse 14. The four Vedas and their supplementary Puranas, Mahabharata and Ramayana, their corollaries, which are known as Smritis, are all authorized sources of knowledge. If we are at all to gather knowledge, we must gather it from these without hesitation. So in this way he goes on. There are many, many quotes here. In the very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the purport, he quotes, if you want to understand the original psychology of rasa, then you should study the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which is called Sa'artha Darshini. So like this, there's many, many quotes which are here. If someone requested, I'll try to put them in the commentary. Here's another one. This is from the purport of Bhagavatam 111. I think this is what I just quoted. Within the past 500 years, many erudite scholars and acharyas like Jiva Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Vallabhacharya, and many other distinguished scholars, even after the time of Lord Chaitanya, made elaborate commentaries on the Bhagavatam. And the serious student would do well to attempt to go through them to better relish the transcendental messages. I mean, these are all like very, very direct quotes of Srila Prabhupada regarding the writings of the previous Acharyas. So why is this important? Because when you, first of all, want to understand something, you want to understand it in its deepest context. So the more resource material you have, the better opportunity you have to hear from realized souls the information regarding that subject. So Srila Prabhupada has been very encouraging. Yes, I've introduced and written from these commentaries. You yourself, in the course of time, of course, many are translated into English now. Formerly, it may have been more difficult because most of the commentaries are in Sanskrit, and it's difficult if you don't read Sanskrit. And even if you read Sanskrit, you'll also have to still see the commentary. Because I remember many years ago when I was studying Sanskrit in Africa, and I came back to America, I was going to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. And in that Library of Congress, there are some of the writings of our Goswamis. So I had checked out some of the books, and I was trying to read in Sanskrit, and there was one very helpful person who was like the head of the library named Dr. Thrasher. I remember his name, actually. And he was a Sanskrit scholar, and he was trying to help me go through. But then, I realized, unless you really are able to go through the commentaries, just reading the works themselves, like Srimad Bhagavatam or anything else, just reading it in Sanskrit, it will be very difficult. You have to actually read the commentary. And then you have to have context for the commentary, right? Like, what's the context of why this is being said here, etc. So, of course, over the course of years, I tried to increase my study and so forth and so on, and also having the good fortune to have God brothers and God sisters and others, and a Sanskrit teacher and so forth to help. And at one point there was a site which was called the Grantha Mandir, and it similarly had not only all the original writings like Srimad Bhagavatam, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, but it had the commentary. So that was also helpful, but still my Sanskrit knowledge was not great enough. So by good fortune, over the course of years, many devotees who've dedicated themselves in particular to the study of Sanskrit language, His Holiness Bhanu Swami and others, have translated very authentically the writings of the previous Acharyas. And I think Srila Prabhupada has bestowed his blessings upon devotees like Bhanu Swami to make available a great deal of these writings in English. If you do have some knowledge of Sanskrit, you can verify and check, because I know one question will come up, well, how do we know the translation is authentic? Well, then you'll have to put the time and effort into studying Sanskrit so that you can know that, yes, they're genuine commentaries. So if you study Devanagari, etc., you can read it and you can see, yes, the translation is on point, right? Always there's going to be some, debate a little bit about this word or that word, but in general, the commentaries, especially about Nuswami, I found to be very, very helpful, right? I still go back and look in Sanskrit from time to time to look and see what the writing was originally and so forth and so on. But reading and understanding how our Acharyas have framed particular understandings of Siddhanta, or especially Rasa Siddhanta, is very, very important. Because without having an understanding, it's difficult to practice bhakti. On the phone conference last night, we were discussing Sambandha Gyan. And I was telling that unless there is a clear understanding of Sambandha Gyan, it is very difficult to practice adequately. I think I spoke it also to some degree on our Sunday Zoom class. So last night on the phone conference, and then on the Sunday Zoom class also, it was spoken. And Sambandha Gyan means how to understand how you are related to the practice that we're doing, which is called Abhideya, and the prayojan, which is the goal, which is love of God. So unless you have a clear understanding of Sambandha Gyan, then the practice remains within the domain of generic religious practice. And what do I mean by that? Until, and I think I gave a question and answer a couple of days ago maybe, on hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, because one devotee wrote me about, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, and I mentioned how you hear is dependent on how you see yourself in relation to Srimad Bhagavatam. In other words, if I see myself in relation to Srimad Bhagavatam as an aspirant for getting free from material suffering, and believing that the knowledge of how to accomplish that is in Srimad Bhagavatam, then that's a particular disposition, a particular perspective on how I hear. Because I'm hearing things from my self-interest in a spiritual capacity. Right? Formerly in the material world, everything was about my self-interest in terms of material enjoyment. Perhaps in maturity, realizing that material enjoyment was not really the best outcome for my life, then we switch and we say, well, I'm going to pursue my self-interest spiritually. But remember, both things are couched in self-interest. And your self-interest is maintained by a hamkara or false ego. When we're in the material world, it's the false ego that's telling us, yes, you can be the cause, the doer, and the enjoyer of what you produce. Right? And that's obviously a false narrative. Prakriti kiya manani gunai kamani savasha ahankar vimuratma kartamiti manyate. So, when we come into spiritual life, it's not that the false ego is just immediately gone. Right? We have an understanding. Jivera Sarupaya Krishna Nitya Das. That I am the Das of Krishna. Well, that Das is a very generic, constitutional spiritual reality. It's not a particular relationship with Krishna. I'm giving an example. I gave it on Sunday. We have a relationship with humanity because we're all human beings, right? Generally speaking, right? We're all human beings, so we have a general relationship with humanity. But we have a specific relationship with our husband, wife, children, mother, father, brother, friends. So specificity is what creates relation or sambandha. Constitutional reality is I'm a human being and I have a relation to all humanity. Constitutionally, I'm the Das of Krishna, and whether I know it or not, whether I even have any consciousness of Krishna or not, that fact cannot be changed. Jiva Goswami wrote, Dasa Bhuti Hari Eva Nanyasha Eva Karachana. At no time can you not be the Das of Krishna. You can only be an illusion and think you're something else. So that's a generic disposition. It does not give rise to a particular mood of service, love, or relation to Krishna. It is the generic form of everyone and everything is at Krishna's disposal as his servant. You understand? So the specific kind of relationship we have with Krishna that comes in relation to guru and disciple. The actual process of diksha is for that purpose. Sri Guru gives Harinam, and in Harinam, Guru awards from his own heart the chanting of the Akshar, means the 32 syllables of Sri Nam. When a devotee becomes more mature in their practice and starts to develop relation, those 32 syllables, which created auspiciousness, created the atmosphere of spiritual interest, created the removal of many of our sins, because a holy name, even if it's chanted in Nam Abbas, what is it? Vaikuntha Nama Asesha Hagam, Vaikuntha Nama Asesha Agam Haram Vidu. That it has the power to remove unlimited kinds of sins. So that Nam Akshar, 32 syllables, can do that. But when there's more maturity, those 32 syllables, I've given this explanation many times, becomes the understanding of 16 names. We understand those 16 names to be related to the Archavigraha, the deity in the temple. So Radha and Krishna. When there's more maturity with Sambandha, then one realizes those 16 names to be 8 pairs of names. And this is where the actual maturation of devotion becomes progressive. Because now one can understand the sambandha between Radha and Krishna, and therefore one understands I have a sambandha to Radha and Krishna, right, in terms of service, and now my chanting takes on that dimension. So this is an overview, this is not all the details here, right? It takes on the sambandha of being related to the service of Radha and Krishna, and what that means. So then you have to know what that entails. I often tell devotees, not only should you ask questions in a class environment, but you should ask yourself daily many, many questions. I join the process of bhakti to obtain love of God. What does love of God mean? What is the love? To which form of God? Is it generic? Is it specific? Why is there an emphasis on Vrindavan? Why are the deities that we worship predominantly Radha and Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, or Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, all which have some relation to Vrindavan? If it is about Vrindavan, what is the method of worship that's related to Vrindavan? So therefore, what is Raganuga Bhakti? What is Vaidhi? So thousands and thousands of questions have to constantly be flowing in your heart that you want to have answered, or that by your study in combination with hearing Harikatha of mature devotees will answer those questions. That is how you substantiate your practice and how your footing in the practice becomes firm. If you simply remain on the platform of salvationism, I simply want to get free from my suffering, then there's no need for all of this understanding, and even there was no need to come to bhakti, because you could have gotten rid of material misery even in impersonalist paths. They also become free from miseries in the material world. They obtain Atma Ananda. They realize the Atma, and the Atma has been described by Jiva Goswami as Chid Ananda Atmika, means Dukkha Pratiyogita. There's no misery in the Atma. So simply by understanding the Atma, you can become free from misery, but that's not love of God. So in order to have love of God, this sambandha is very important. And the questions around everything is what creates relation. If you walk into a room with people that you do not know for a seminar or something, one of the first things they do, I've given many seminars in different subject matters under secular or religious understanding, but even in secular teachings that I've had to do, the first thing I do is go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves. Because now we have relation to the people in the room. We understand why we're all there. So these are the kind of connections and the kind of bridges that have to be crossed to enter into the sincere and serious practice of bhakti. Right? What is my sambandha? So I mentioned that it comes from Guru at the time of Diksha. So Diksha means two things. Diyate param gyan, shiyate papanasan. So Dibya Gyan means understanding of what particular Ishtadev is my ekantik or one-pointed object of worship, and what's my relationship with that Ishtadev. These are the two things that are comprised in Divya Gyan. Jiva Goswami described it, Divya Gyanam Yanta Shimanti Mantre, Bhagavat Sarup Gyanantena, Bhagavat Sambandha, Visesh. This word Visesh is very important, it means specific. Visesh Sambandham Gyanamscha. Who is my Ishtadev? Is it Ramchandra? Is it Sri Krishna and Braj, Sri Krishna and Dwarka? Is it Narasimhadev? And right now, many devotees will think, well, it's all Bhagavan, it's all the same. Similarly, just as an example, think, if you are a male and you are thinking about getting married, there's unlimited women in the human in the human category. But are you going to marry womankind? No. Even though they're all women, there's specific women that you're going to marry. You understand? So even though there are unlimited forms of Bhagavan, there are unlimited avatars, our relationship is with one form of Bhagavan through which we have a particular relationship, and our perspective on all the other forms of Bhagavan is shaped by that. I'm giving an example. Hanuman's Ishtadev is Sri Ramchandra. His prism of vision regarding all the other incarnations is how are they related to Lord Ram. You understand? Just like there's a famous pastime that once a messenger was sent to Hanuman from Krishna to say, listen, the Lord wants to see you. So Hanuman's question was, which Lord? Who wants to see me? So the messenger goes back and Krishna says, tell him that Lord Ram wants to see him. And immediately when he mentioned the name Ram, even before he could finish, Hanuman was gone, and he'd already went directly to that place where the Lord had requested him to come. You understand? So of course Hanuman knows Sri Krishna is the original form of Lord Ram, but the Ishtadev of Hanuman is Ram. That same Hanuman appears in Gaur Leela as Murari Gupta. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is directly the manifest form of Radha and Krishna, told him, listen, you should change your worship and you should worship the form of Krishna, he could not do it. He said, I've sold my head to the lotus feet of Lord Ram. Similarly, the brother of Rupa and Sanatan, Anupam, he told the same thing, I've sold my head to the lotus feet of Lord Ram. You understand? But Mahaprabhu's Leela was meant for that. Mahaprabhu's Leela was meant to bring in all the devotees from all the previous incarnations and give them the taste of the intensity of Braj praying. You understand? I'm not going into that right now. But the point is that we should be ekantik. We have a one-pointed focus on our Ishtadev and how we're serving that particular Ishtadev. That shapes our view of all the other forms of Bhagavan. You understand? And primarily in this line, coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because we couch how we see everything through the prism of the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu told one scholar, listen, if you want to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, Yaha Bhagavata Pada Vaishnavera Stoni Ekanta Sraya Chaitanya Charani. Go to the lotus feet of any Vaishnav who has taken exclusive shelter at the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Similarly, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur part is mentioned. Arajo Bhagavan Vrajeshatanaya Taddama Vrindavanam Ramyaskascha Upasana Vrajavadu Vagena Yakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Madamidam Tatra Adro Napara. So this verse essentially is saying, listen, we have our main focus of the worship of Shri Krishna as he is in Vrindavan. And how is he worshipped in Vrindavan? The highest form of that worship, Ramyaskascha Upasana Vrajavadu Vagena Yakalpita. That worship that was done by the Braj Ramanis, means the gopis, is the highest class of worship of Shri Krishna in Vrindavan. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. The spotless proof of this is Srimad Bhagavatam. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Madamidam. Right? This is also the Matam means opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, Tatra Adro Naparaha. So I don't give a dar, means respect or real consideration to any opinion other than this opinion which has come in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we have to become like this, akantik in our perspective. So the way that will happen is to get siksha, if you don't have understanding already, of the diksha mantras you received at the time of initiation. Because in seed form, all of the indications and realizations of our particular relationship with an Ishtadev is in those mantras. So it's imperative to understand the mantra. The actual process of Diksha is called Vidvad Rudi. The word Vidvad Rudi means, Vid means knowledge, or Vidya. Vad means to have or hold. Vidvad Rudi means the function. The function of holding knowledge regarding the Diksha mantras is called Vidvad Rudi Diksha. You understand? If you've taken Diksha mantras, but you're not clear on the meaning, right? Because the first element of Vidvad Rudi Diksha is called Mantra Artha Chintan. So Mantra Artha means what is the meaning of the words themselves. And then in understanding the meaning, Chintan means to contemplate them. Right? So when you're chanting, what you're doing is you should know the meaning of the words and you're contemplating them. Contemplation leads to dhyan or meditation. When you contemplate something, the many meanings of that thing open up like a flower. It is called Artha Dwani. Artha means meaning, Dwani means an echo, like we do the Jaya Dwani. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Understand? That's called an echo. So Artha Dwani means the echo of meanings. So when you are chanting and you understand the meaning of the mantra, the words in the mantra, and you do meditation based on what you hear from Guru and Guru Dev's Harikatha, that opens up the Dwani of meanings of the various words in the mantra. That's how realization takes place. You understand? So in that is the seed of what is your relation to Sri Krishna. You understand? So then gradually in incremental stages, that realization of your relation comes about in your consciousness by hearing Harikatha. Mahaprabhu told in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Malik Kanase Bij Aropan. The Malik means a gardener. So he says, take the seed. The Bij here is that seed in the divine mantras of Divya Gyan. Take the seed, plant it. Right? In other words, Mahaprabhu is saying, I can't force you to plant it. Malikana say bijaropan. You have to choose to do the work to plant the seed, do the depth of study, practice, etc. So when you do plant the seed, water it. Shravanam Kirtananjale Koriye Shekon. By Shravan and Kirtan means Harikatha and Harinam, you should water that seed. That seed will begin to sprout in your consciousness, and in gradual incremental stages, it will reveal 11 different things. Nam, Rup, Vyas, Vesh, Sambandha, Yuta, Agyay, Seva, Parakosta, Nivasika. Palyadasi, Bhav, Nivasika. So 11 different things. These 11 different things are the components of your actual relation with Krishna. Now you cannot force that to come, and you can't do it by kalpana or imagination, because then it will become prakrita sahajavad. Because then what you're doing is you're applying material elements to a spiritual reality, and that just does not work. So that's why it's called prakrita sahajavad. Right? The word sahaja means natural, but when you try to apply prakrit, means your material samskars, impressions, or imagination, it corrupts the natural process of the unfoldment of bhakti via the spiritual energy called Swarup Shakti. Because what happens is that when we're practicing bhakti, in incremental stages, the spiritual energy, which is called Swarup Shakti, it is composed of Sandini, means spiritual existence, par excellence. Samvit means spiritual consciousness or cognition. And Alatini means the spiritual bliss potency, the natural inherent bliss that comes from loving God and the reciprocation that comes from that. That spiritual energy is what's descending in incremental stages from faith all the way to Bhav. In Bhav, it's just crystallized, right? In Ashakti, the stage of Ashakti, so let me first give the stages. Faith, Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya. Bhajana Kriya is 2 words. From Sadhu Sangha, you learn how to do bhajan, how to practice. When you practice properly, the Kriya Shakti means the potency of activity coming from Sri Radha and Krishna, that Kriya Shakti imbued with Swarup Shakti then begins to make an impression on your consciousness. It's that impression that gives rise to the power to remove anarthas. The jiva themselves can't remove anarthas. We don't have that kind of power. So it requires the Kriya Shakti of Bhagavan, which comes from hearing, chanting, practicing, etc. That removes anarthas in the same way that when you turn on a light, darkness is dissipated. Right? You cannot physically remove darkness like put it in buckets and throw it outside. You can only remove darkness by dissipating it with light. So the illumination coming from the practice, from Harikatha, etc., starts to illuminate the consciousness that removes the darkness of anarthas. When that's removed, the illumination in the chitta becomes steady. Nischalaya yashati nishta. That stage is called nishta. When that nishta stage is there, our transcendental taste buds, for lack of a better word, are improved. And when our spiritual ability to taste is improved, when we hear Harikatha, tat tat bhava adi madhurye shruti dirapekshite nasa sasana yuktingsha ta lobat utpatti lakshanam. Then lobe, greed arises for a particular mood that we hear in Sastra. How Subal and Sri Dama serving Krishna. How Ma Yashoda is serving Krishna. How Gopis headed by Radhika are serving Krishna, and how her servants, Manjaris, are serving her. Hearing these things, the sanskar from previous lives in your heart becomes expanded. You understand? Because not only one life that you've taken Diksha, right? If you're on the path in a deep way, you've taken Diksha in previous lives. So only you're waiting to catch up to the import of the Diksha. So now, a particular taste comes in the heart. When that taste comes in the heart, it increases the desire to perform bhajan in order to have deeper realization of that taste you're experiencing. That taste is called lobh or greed. That greed is for a particular type of service. So antas chintan seva abhista tat upayogi dehinam. So now the contemplation is, antas chintan means internally contemplating seva abhista. That desire I have to serve Krishna, like Subal Sridham, like Rupa Rati Manjari, like Yashoda Nanda, like that. In our line, this Parirasi Bhav is prominent. Right? Mahaprabhu told, Narpita Chidim Chirat Kalunavitiyana Kalo, Sumritpaitam Unata Jwalarasa Swabhakti Sriyam. It means the mood of serving how Radhika loves Krishna. That's a prominent feature in our line. It does not mean everybody is in Manjari Bhav. It just means it's the prominent feature of our line. It's a special gift of Mahaprabhu. So, many who come to this line, obviously, that is their mood. Right? But that should be understood in maturation, not speculation. Right? So now, in the stage of Ruchi, when Ruchi becomes mature, apara prora para atma sayiti bhajaniyam, then a direct idea of the object of your worship becomes prominent. Bhagavan karoti ashakti akyayate. This is called a Shakti. This stage is called a Shakti. In a Shakti, Jiva Goswami says, Tatra tadrasa sudakaraka bhasa sumulasita hridaya spatikamani. The heart becomes like a, spatikamani means like a crystal. And when the heart becomes like a crystal, it catches the reflection. Bhagavat Bimba Grahita. It catches the reflection of the darshan of Bhagavan. You understand? At that time, Sastra Shruta Adeshu Ragatmakaya Bhakti Tadrisa Paripattashu Api Ruchi Jayate. At that time, when you're hearing the Sastra, a direct abhas, it's called, means like a shadow, appears on the chitta of the mood of one of the eternal associates. So now, the desire for that mood becomes so intense that at every second, like when we sing in Guru Astakam, Shiradikaya Madhavyarapada Madhuja Lila Gunarupananam. Listen carefully. Pratikshana Dana Lolupasya. Pratikshana means a fraction of a second. Dana Lolupas. At every fraction of a second, Lolupas means the intensity of the desire to obtain that mood of service enters the heart. That is called the stage of a Sakti. There's nothing you can do beyond that stage except wait for the mercy of Bhagavan. So then, Sri Radha and Krishna, Mahaprabhu, they bestow their mercy on that devotee who is in that stage. Then Suddha Sattva Visheshatma Prem Sriyangsa Samyavak Ruchi Vish Chittamasuniya Kirasoba Vujite. That actual mood descends. A ray of that mood descends into the heart of that aspirant and illuminates the heart with especially clearly those 11 things I mentioned earlier. And now that devotee goes on in their practice. The practice never stops. There's never a time when we don't chant Harinam, we don't go to Mangalarti, we don't. Rather, all of the intensity of feelings around those things changes, but those things themselves are never given up. Understand? So now, devotees practicing, but having realization of their internal true spiritual identity, they practice in two ways. So Rupa Goswami wrote in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Seva Sadika Rupena Siddha Rupena Chatrihi Tad Bhavalipsana Kara Raja Lokanusarita. So he says, Seva Sadika Rupena. Two kinds of forms are manifest. One, Sadak Rup. It means the form that you have now as a Sadaka. In that form, you're still going Mangalarti, chanting your fixed number of rounds, doing service to Thakurji, doing service to Vaishnavas, doing Swadhyaya, means spiritual study, all the things you've been doing. In your Siddha Rup, when you're doing your meditations, in your Siddha Rup, at that time you'll have experience of Mantramayu means seeing the darshan of Krishna in a particular situation. When that becomes more mature, it becomes called Swarasiki Upasan. It means then seeing the Leela of Krishna unfold. So those things go on in the internal spiritual identity. You understand? But externally, Vrajalokanusarta means we follow the Goswamis as they practiced here. Like Rup Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, our own Guru Devs, how they practiced. And internally, we follow them internally according to their internal disposition. We follow Rup Goswami as Rupa Manjari. We follow Raghunath Das Goswami as Rakti Manjari. You understand? And if you know the Siddha form of your own Guru Dev, obviously you follow the internal form of your own Guru Dev. Right? So this is in maturation. But this is how the process works. And this is why Sambandha Gyan is very important. And back to our original point, all these things are described in Srila Prabhupada's books, and Srila Prabhupada gives reference to the books of the previous Acharyas. And therefore we have to take the effort to study. Anything that we want to accomplish in this world, whether it's business, athletics, I don't care what it is, a relationship, everybody puts in just innumerable energy and work to make it happen. Why we should think it's different than spiritual life? This is the meaning of Saranagati. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikula shiva. I will give everything to do what is favorable and reject what's unfavorable. So what is favorable is to completely give yourself to understanding what these things are and then putting them in application and practice. To simply collect it as information or data, it doesn't produce realization. Information is not realization. Information is information. So nayamatma pravachanena labja namerasaya nabusutena. If you collect a lot of information and you can, in very erudite way, regurgitate it, it won't produce realization in your own heart of your own swarup, etc. You understand? It will be intellectually exciting, and therefore your false egoism will become attached to that idea. Oh, I'm really enjoying this. And then people will tell you, Prabhu, you're a great pundit, you're a great scholar, and then your false ego will drink that. But when that happens, you cannot then taste the internal reality of bhakti. Raghunath Das Goswami told, Pratistasa drasa swapacha ramani ridi me natet katam sadhu prema sprisati suchi nanumana. How you taste bhakti if pratishta asha means the desire for name and fame and recognition, all these things are there. And once you taste something in bhakti, you'll have no desire for these things, guaranteed. Bhakti is a very wonderful thing. If you taste something, you won't think, oh, it's very good to be a scholar, it's very good to be a great kirtaniya, it's very good to be this or that, or to be wealthy or to be this. No, there's no taste that's comparable to it. And you'll simply want to go deeper and deeper into that taste. Understand? All right, I have some other services to do, so I do have to end here. So, Prabhu, who asked the question about the books of previous acharyas, I know this was a pretty expanded explanation of that, but hopefully it was helpful. That's the whole idea. All right, my Dandavat Pranam. Oh, Jiva Pavana Prabhu, Dandavat, Shrilochan Prabhu, Dandavat. Hope you are feeling better. I saw some other devotees on, but now I can't see them. But anyway, also all devotees who are on, please give me your mercy and blessings to go on serving Hari Guru and Vaishnava. Jai Vancha Kalpa Turvishcha Kripa Shindavevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Radhe Radhe. Ashadin Siddha Prabhu, please, you can just send me a messenger because I have services to do now. Rather, I got the email and I sent you that program. So just to let me know that you got it. Okay. All right. You can share with Kapila Dev if you want. I don't know about sharing it so much beyond that. Because again, it was meant for devotees because they're working how to make a good morning program meditation for those who have to work and everything and sometimes find their time contracted and you want to have maximum time to do nice chanting. All right? All right, just let me know that you got that, Prabhuji. All right. Jai Radhe Radhe.